So today we're responding to Andrea's claim that the FDA is insufficient to protect the consumers because they do not approve most beauty products that are out on the market. My claim today will be that the FDA is doing its job to protect the consumers of beauty products that are out on the market. To begin with, Andrea's secondary claims were one, that the FDA lacks the authority to investigate or punish manufacturers for dangerous products. Number two, that the FDA is more lenient on beauty products than they are on food or drugs. And three, that the poor lack of attention from the FDA can be dangerous for consumers who are willing to try new products. Before I jump into my secondary claims, I'd like to start off by giving a statement by Dr. Amy Newberger, who is a board-certified dermatologist and who served at the FDA. And she states in her 2009 article, Cosmeceuticals, Myths and Misconceptions, that 80 years ago, cosmetics were unregulated. It wasn't until the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Acts of 1938 that set the infrastructure on cosmetics based on the prevailing knowledge. And at the time that the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act was passed, not much was known about the normal physiology of the skin. Most of the study of the structure and function of the skin was oriented towards disease processes. With that being said, I would jump into my first claim that the FDA does not lack the authority to investigate or punish manufacturers for products. According to Andrea's source, the Center for Plastic Surgery, the FDA does not approve most beauty products that are out on the market. On the FDA's website, it states that the FDCA law does not require cosmetic products and ingredients to have FDA approval before they go out on the market. But there are laws that apply to cosmetics on the market, and the FDA enforces those laws, such as the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act, which basically tells companies that they have to truthfully label each and every single one of the products with ingredients and just every single detail. The FDA does not order a recall of cosmetics, but they do monitor the progress of a recall. They evaluate the health hazards, develop recommended strategy for each recall, and can even make sure that the product is destroyed or suitably reconditioned if necessary. If the FDA believes that there should be a necessary public notification, the FDA assures that the cosmetic firm issues a public notification. If the company does not comply, then the FDA issues a public notification themselves. The FDA is not responsible for substantiating the safety of cosmetics. It is the responsibility of the company, which is why the authority of the FDA is very important. According to Rosa Chun, a professor of corporate reputation, ethics, and marketing at IMD, states that consumers are willing to pay more for a brand which is perceived to be ethical. The FDA has the ability to pressure cosmetic companies to notify the customers about any issues that the product may possess, which can stain the reputation of the cosmetic companies, which in turn may lead to less consumers relying on the product and the company. Moving on to my second claim, the FDA is not more lenient on beauty products than they are on food or drugs. The second claim made by Andrea is irrelevant to her claim because she fails to recognize that the FDA is not more lenient on beauty products. Andrea stated it herself. The FDA has no authority to approve most cosmetic products, but they can regulate them. Some people, such as Andrea, may think that if you report a problem with a cosmetic product to the company, that the company does not have to report that complaint to the FDA, which in turn forces the FDA to be more lenient on cosmetics. However, in the FDA's website, it is recommended that the complaint be made to the FDA so they can add the report to their database and see if others have reported a similar issue. If so, then the FDA will represent a public health concern that needs to be addressed. The FDA is not more lenient on cosmetics. Simply, they aren't as many incidents to cause a product to be recalled in the cosmetics as there are with food or drugs or devices, which is shown in the FDA's enforcement report of recalled products. This year alone, from January to April, there have been a total of 5 enforcements on recalled products for cosmetics. But just in the week of April 25th, there were a total of 109 food enforcement reports. Moving on to my third claim, I'd like to close the circle by going back to Newberger's article, which in that same article she stated that the Congress specifically put more control on the manufacture and preparation of foods and drugs than on cosmetics because of the potential greater hazard from ingestion of substances than from the application of products used for personal grooming or beautification. The number of recalls for this year tell us that the FDA is doing its intended job. As stated before, it is the responsibility of the company to truthfully inform its consumers of their product. If the company does not do so, there will be consequences. In the Wen hair loss incident that was mentioned by Andrea, the Wen brand denied the allegations, even though the FDA had received 127 complaints. As a result of those complaints, the FDA questioned Wen, and it came out that the company was sitting on another 21,000 complaints. Eventually, Wen settled for a class action lawsuit for $26 million. The FDA, in conclusion, is doing everything in its power, but people assume that the FDA has no control over cosmetics, when in reality they can do more if the consumers of these products take initiative and help the FDA. Thank you.
All right, the structural stuff is good. The kind of preview argument that you make, talking about the kind of history of the FDA and what its responsibilities is okay. I thought that you had a better explanation later on in the speech as to why there is a difference, and that is that the dangers are higher for food and drugs than they are for cosmetics, and so that's why the responsibility was put more heavily on the FDA for those particular products. Because of the kinds of risks that you're involved in. And one of the things that I think you could point out is that the one example that the advocate cites, the big danger here was hair loss, which is obviously not a good thing, but it's not death, it's not permanent dismemberment, it's not that you lose the ability to reproduce or have a heart defect, which is what you're dealing with food and drug issues. So I think that that's a good generic kind of opening argument to make there. I do think that you kind of are parsing the language here sometimes. The FDA may lack the authority to take some actions, but the authority that it does have is sufficient to protect consumers. That's basically the way I think your argument needs to be phrased. You kind of just say, well, the FDA doesn't lack authority. Well, they lack authority to do some things. I don't think you're even denying that. What you are saying is that they have enough authority to produce valuable consequences and protect people. And you mentioned, for instance, the ability to label products, to enforce for other agencies, to moderate recalls, that sort of thing. And the notion that the public, if they notify the FDA, that they can keep a record, and then the FDA can use pressure on companies to respond to those sorts of issues, I think that's a good point. But let's face it, it's not the same thing as the FDA being able to recall the material themselves or forcing an issue. They have to work in slightly different ways, but your argument is that the authority should be that the authority exists, but it's not the same kind of explicit authority that exists for the other products. And then you got to the more lenient issue on the second point, which I've already mentioned to you. I think that's probably a good explanation. I think it could have come at the beginning of the speech also. And then on the last point, the one case that the advocate talked about, in essence, the FDA did investigate. They did discover that the company had lots more reports than the FDA had, and that there was a class action lawsuit that resulted in a $26 million payout. That sounds to me like there was some level of enforcement here, and that's the only example that the advocate provided. So I think that's the way you want to present it. It says there was a successful resolution of this, largely as a result of the FDA's intervention in this process. So the conclusion that the advocate is presenting is not really representative of what happened in these circumstances. Okay, thank you.